What's going on? What's going on? We're back for another one. Garry Russell Jr. He wants that smoke with Gervonta Tank Davis. He saw the fight that happened yesterday, and he's saying that he wants to take on that. He's licking his chops, at a fight with a Tank Davis. He said that Santa Cruz had a good game plan, and that he personally believes that the flaws that Santa Cruz has that due to the fact that he believes he doesn't have those flaws, that he would be able to have a lot more success with Gervonta Tank Davis. He said with Santa Cruz, he liked the offense aspect of it, but he said Santa Cruz just doesn't have the defense, and he doesn't have basically, I guess, like you could say, the footwork to be able to keep somebody like a Gervonta Tank Davis off him. He said that Gervonta Davis was trying to basically hit the same old repetitive hook over and over and over and over again, and he believes that Gervonta Tank Davis just got lucky when he landed that, and that he believes that Floyd Mayweather was very nervous before that particular, before the 6th round, because he thought that Tank Davis was losing the fight. As far as these two, if they were to face each other, what I always notice is when it comes to fighters, some people, they'll look at another fighter and they'll look at what they believe to be is the negative things that's going on in a fight, but they'll never look at what is that guy doing that's positive, that could F you up, that could mess you up. Garry Russell said that he would press he would press it. He wouldn't be moving. He wouldn't be going back. He'll be pressing the action, and that he would try to put Tank on the back foot, and he would just beat him up. He said he just basically would physically beat him up. And if those two were to fight, me personally, what I would believe in that fight, what happened in that fight, is I believe, I got a lot of respect for Garry Russell, but I think Garry Russell gets stops in that fight. You don't have the height that a Santa Cruz has, and just because he fought Santa Cruz in a particular way, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to fight you in that same fashion. And also due to the fact that you're basically saying, I'm not going to have my hands up the whole time like Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz was broke down. That shot didn't just land because it landed. That shot landed because Tank kept catching him to the body over and over and over again. Turned that body into mincemeat. Okay, turned that body into mush. And because that body was being turned to mush, that hand started coming down. And because those hands started coming down, it started to catch him up top. Okay, and it's not, when somebody has that high guard like that, sometimes it's very hard to knock them out. Like Earl Spence versus a Mikey Garcia that's coming up in weight. He didn't knock Mikey Garcia because Mikey Garcia had that defense tight. But what Tank Davis does is he eventually finds a way through it. It took him a long time against Gamboa, but that Gamboa fight, believe it or not, helped him. It helped him a lot because Ben basically ended up meeting up with somebody that was kind of trying to do the same thing, but he already knew what to do, due to his past experience. And it made the adjustments right away due to what was going on, and he handled his business. From him boxing and moving, he was boxing and moving in certain rounds, and boxing and moving with no problem. When he had to move forward and cut off the ring, he was doing that. And then there was certain times where he just hit that pressure. He put the high guard. He's like, I'm gonna put this high guard in, and I'm gonna bang out with you because you ain't got nothing for me. That's why that happened. So with a Garry Russell Jr., Garry Russell Jr. is knocking out people like that. Garry Russell doesn't necessarily have power like that, and you'd be moving up to 130 pounds. So what's going to happen is Garry Russell, if he was to implement that game plan, he's going to get clipped in between the punches. He's going to come at Garry Russell's body the same way. If Garry Russell's leaving himself open, the upper body open, he's going to go up top. He's going to put him out. Garry Russell's a whole lot smaller than Santa Cruz. He's a whole lot smaller than Santa Cruz. And the guys that he's been facing is not Tank Davis. He's not. And if you couldn't put those guys down, it's like, what gives you the belief that you're going to be able to put Tank down? If you don't have anything that Tank has to respect, he's going to run right through you. And Tank can box. He can move around the ring. He can just do the jab, go to the body, go up top, move. He has good movement if he wants to. But he's also going to come with those haymakers to the body, to the body. People talking about, oh, he had a mouse of his eye. It's boxing. You're going to get hit. Earl Spence gets hit all the time. No one says anything about that. They used to when they with the Kell Brooks fight. They're like, oh, he's getting hit like that against Kell Brooks. Imagine when he faces what's his name? Imagine when he faces Porter. You know, when he was getting hit by punches with Algieri. So it was like, oh, he's getting hit. He got hit by a couple of punches by Algieri, and he got hit a couple of punches by Peterson. So imagine what Kell Brook's going to do to him. Didn't matter at the end of the day. He was able to make the adjustments that were necessary in that fight and handle his business. Jamel Charles gets hit all the time. All the time. How's that working out for people? How'd that work out for Harrison? How'd that work out for Rosario? How'd that work out for what's his name? For Lubin? You know, that's why it's also when it comes to like these, oh, they see a Devin Haney do something, or Shakur Stevenson do something, or Teal do something. At least, you know, Teal fought against, you know, Lomachenko, but these other guys are fighting super low tier competition. And because you see them doing things against a super low tier competition, you think that they're going to be able to do it to Tank? Just like people thought that Lubin's doing all this stuff, he's going to be able to do this to Jamar. Look at the issues that Jamel Charles having with. Jamel Charles having those issues with top tier fighters. So when somebody's doing something to high school basketballers, it doesn't mean he's going to be able to do that same thing to that NBA player. So when he jumps to the NBA, is he going to be able to, doesn't mean he's going to be able to do the same stuff. You know, maybe you have an outlier that can do the same thing, maybe. But most of the time, no, that's not going to be the case. You know, so even with a Garry Russell Jr., the last time he faced somebody of this caliber was against Lomachenko, and you lost that fight. You obviously clearly had issues in that fight, even though you're saying that you were drained or whatever. And, you know, you still took that L, though. You know, and regardless if you won or lost, even if you were fully healthy, you could still see certain things, even in the Diaz fight. That size was bothering you. What happened was, though, your skill set was just so high above Diaz's that it didn't matter. You know, you were able to overcome that size. But in taking on somebody like a Tank, you know, who has a whole higher level skill set, has a chin where you're probably not going to really mess with him when it comes to that chin like that. And then that power that he has on top of his ring IQ, and the fact that you're a southpaw. So as a southpaw stance, you have this advantage over people that you're not going to have with Tank. You're not going to have that particular advantage because Tank's a southpaw too. You know, obviously, Tank's also not going to have that advantage because you're going to be a southpaw as well too, though. You know, obviously, but to just think that you're going to be able to run through Tank or beat Tank up, to me, that's asinine. To me, it's completely asinine. You know, and is this fight going to happen? I don't believe so. Just due to the fact that I believe they're trying to go after, if they have something set up with Ryan Garcia, they're going to go after Ryan Garcia because that's the bigger fight. That's the big money fight. Just like the reason people are like, oh, Santa Cruz, you know, never faced Garry Russell. You know, got nothing but love for Russell. You know, when it came to Devin Haney's situation, it was BS. They were trying to play him. They never had no intentions of fighting him whatsoever. They have no intentions of fighting Garry Russell. Okay, they just want to utilize that name to push themselves up without actually fighting him, a la Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder situation. Devin Haney being a matchroom promoted fighter, they were using the same blueprint. But besides that, though, Garry Russell has done nothing to promote himself through his whole entire career. He's done absolutely nothing to do so. And he's been extremely inactive. You know, and in doing so, people like Santa Cruz like, no, I'm not going to fight him. What, I'm going to fight him for the regular amount of money? Hell no, I'm fighting somebody of that caliber. I want to get paid this amount. Just like with Earl Spence, those dudes were looking at him saying, hell no, I'm not fighting from this amount. You're going to have to pay me to fight him. And right now he brings that money where they'll fight him. He built himself to that level. Deontay Wilder built himself to that level where fighting him is big money fights. You know, it's big money fights for those two because they built themselves up to that level from going to fights, you know, talking to reporters, keeping their names, you know, in what's going out there on a consistent, regular basis. They did that. Garry Russell chose not to do that. So now, the situation that Garry Russell, you got to do something. You supposedly were going to fight, you know, for the mandatory spot to fight Devin Haney, the WBC, at 135 pounds. Now it sounds like now they're saying that you're not going to do that. Okay? Now they're talking about you going up to 130 pounds. And fighting, I guess maybe even trying to push for a fight against somebody like a Burchell. You still haven't announced anything. You're still not doing anything. You got to do something. Besides just talking when somebody fights, you got to do something. You got to stay active. You got to fight. If you can go to these particular guys' fights, you got to go to the fights. And push your name out there and get yourself to the point where you're like, you know what? That's a big money fight. I'll fight him. You got to put in that work. If you're somebody of that station, that skills, that's what you're going to have to do. You're not special. Earl Spence had to do it. Deontay Wilder had to do it. Floyd Mayweather had to do it. Floyd Mayweather, the guy that's making $300 million in one damn fight, he had to do it. For over a decade, he had to do it. And you have the perfect platform and the perfect people who will set up the perfect situation for you to do that, so you can put yourself into a space where you can get the fights that you want. But you're unwilling to do it. You got to start putting in the work if you want these particular fights. Because if in a situation like that, I could fight Garry Russell for this, or I could fight this guy who has 7 million Twitter followers, and he has all these people that consistently watch him on YouTube, and we know that a portion of these people are going to purchase his pay-per-view to watch him fight. And he's promoted by Oscar De La Hoya. This is a 500,000 pay-per-view fight, 500,000 pay-per-view bout, they probably believe. This is a situation where we can sell out an arena and make millions of dollars. They're going to go for that over you any day of the week. But if you were to go up there somehow to get that Brochel fight, stop Brochel, guess what? Now you got a belt. You know what I'm saying? Now you can do now that's a big unification. Or if you were able to get a rematch with Diaz, who you beat for his IBF belt, and take that. Some kind of move, or even fighting and just staying active. Okay, you were supposed to fight at the end of this year in December. It's November. When are you fighting next? You got to fight. You got to stay active. And you can't just pop up after people have a fight. Consistently still be out there. Keep yourself out there. And utilize all those things to build your name up to the point where you're a big money fighter. We're like, yeah, that's worth the risk. How much money can I make fight getting Russell? Oh yeah, that's worth the risk. And if he does that, I guarantee that man will be facing Gervonta Tank Davis by the end of the year. I believe it's a fight that if Garry Russell does the things that he needs to do, I 100% believe that fight can happen at the end of the year. And what will be probably the biggest fight of the year. If Manny Pacquiao versus Earl Spence doesn't happen, you know what I mean? It's going to be the big, because Crawford Spence ain't happening. Especially with the saga with the Wilder and the Fury, and people, reneging on agreements. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But this could. This is a fight I believe can happen. So I hope he does put in that work and put himself into a situation where we can see this. Put in the work, man. Stop just talking, dude. You talk too much. You don't talk enough, actually. The few times you do talk, you talk too much. It's like you got to put action into your words, man. You got to start doing things. First of all, staying more active when it comes to social media. That's number one. And then number two, fighting. You're your own boss, like you say. I'm my own boss. I'm my own boss. I make my own decisions. What that means, promoting yourself too. That's also on you. You got to put in that damn work, man. Just like Tank did. Tank put in that work. It got himself up to the space where Santa Cruz is like, yeah, I might get put to sleep, but you know what? The juice is worth the squeeze. Okay? Put in that work. Like, subscribe, share. I'm out.